To me, this is not just another nation. It is not just one of the family of nations. This is a nation with a great mission to perform for the benefit of liberty-loving people everywhere.
That we shall be as a city upon a hill.
These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country.
You've come to fight as three men. Three men you are. What will you do without freedom?
Proclaim liberty throughout all the land.
In one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. You gotta fight for your right. Can you dig it?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News in the Morning on a Monday morning. My name is Mr. Henry. We are broadcasting live from wherever we are, these nondescript buildings. They will never know where we are. David Shine Thompson on the other side of the screen there. How you doing on this Monday morning, buddy?
Dude, we're broadcasting from the palatial palace of, we're in the internet White Castle right now, minus Tereth, just sitting there watching the gates from across the valley of evil, keeping evil abated. That's what we're doing, man. Yeah, I don't mind going big on a Monday.
No, man.
I mean, this is Eye of the Tiger. You hearing this? This is the
Eye of the Tiger. Let that play for me, I guess. I don't even care if we get a copyright strike, bro.
Yeah, I don't even care, man.
On Monday.
Man, those algorithms don't know remixes. They don't even know remixes.
That's true. Yeah, they don't know no remixes.
They probably do. They're taking over the world. But anyway,
by the way,
good morning, everyone. I hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. I know I did. It was really good, relaxing, even though I did more work than I wanted to do over the weekend. But I'm happy to be here with all of you today, and it's going to be another great week. Supposedly the last week of lockdown. It's the last week, supposedly.
Hey, man, that's what I was going to say. By the way, we got Sherry, Gabi, Norm, Teresa, a few folks on Facebook already catching up with us. You can also catch us on YouTube, but that's more convenient for you. Same tag information there, just Real News Radio. You'll see our little white newsboy in the background. Shout out to the original Richard Esparza for hooking up that artwork in the background way back in the day. Greatest Audience of the Nation appreciation segment right now. Anything that you're thankful for, any words of encouragement, any words of praise, any prayer concerns you might have going on right now, anything you want to bring to the attention of this community that we're helping build. All of us. I use that word "were" in particular because it's a community effort from day one. Shine and I were actually talking about this over the weekend. From day one, when we started this program, Real News, back on 92.3 FM, AM 760, back in the Knoxville area, we said then our entire purpose of wanting to do this a couple of years back was to create a community, a situation by which an area for people to have a calm, cordial dialogue, right? An exchange, a genuine exchange of ideas. At that point, a couple of years back, it was just with the hope that you could actually maybe convince someone of a better worldview. Maybe that one of the virtues that I hold so dear is that if you're presented with better information, you might actually change your mind, the willingness and the ability, the capacity to change your mind if presented with superior information. And now my boy Shine, a couple of years later, is taking that to finish out the full-on phrasing of we're trying to make a community where we can have a calm, cordial dialogue so that when we have disagreements, it's amongst friends and neighbors, not amongst enemies. Right? That is a major distinction, buddy. Absolutely a major distinction. So honestly, I think that's one of the things we're thankful for this morning. We're thankful for this community pouring into us. If you need help with anything as well, Teresa says, I'm still fighting for my right to party. That's right.
Hey, you got to fight for your right to party.
There you go.
That I threw that in there because it's, what's so weird is we threw that in there like, man, when did I make that intro? That Eye of the Tiger intro, probably days, right? 2013 or 14, back in the, what was the name of that show? The Rude Awakening. Yeah, that was what it was. But it was about freedom of assembly. I mean, that's what it was totally about. I mean, we were in the kind of Fourth Amendment space back then with all the right to privacy stuff was huge in the news. But The freedom of assembly one is huge. I mean, look at it right now. I mean, your right to party is your right to go to church. It's your right to get together and do anything. It's your right to get together and protest. So, I mean, the right to party is a lot like a lot of other rights that we hold very dear. So that's why that little line got dropped into that intro, and it's more apropos today than it's ever been.
Hey, and I also want to shout a big thanks to the community for this Real News community, and I say that because in part, actually because of this headline right here. Let me pull this up so everyone can see. This is a Knoxville specific headline that I'm about to share with y'all. Boom, there it is. You see it on your screen. I'm thankful to the Real News audience for this headline. How, Mr. Henry? I don't understand. Well, give me a second. I'll explain for you. No new taxes. Knoxville American Cannon releases first budget proposal, announces COVID-19 recovery fund. But the important part to pay attention to there is no new taxes. The proposed budget will not propose a tax increase.
Read
and includes
Grant's
funding.
lips. No new taxes.
No new taxes. That's what I'm talking about. I say that the Real News audience, I think, is important to help with this because of how much we've all been on the same boat, on the same board of getting behind this idea in Nashville of the proposal of the property tax increase, right? And in Tennessee, there's only a few ways that we can actually garner more revenue because of obvious reasons. But one of those in particular is a property tax increase. And in Nashville, we're still considering it. But I really do believe that at least a large part of what happened here in Knoxville was the amount of people that took time to sign that petition, the letters to the Metro City Council members. These people talk to each other, right? I'm sure there's some buzz in local publications. I'm sure they might have been talking to their friends about Knoxville saying, are people hitting us up hard? We're getting letters all the time. As far as proposing something, it's not going over well here. I'll tell you that much right now. So if you try and do something similar in Knoxville, just be ready for a fight type thing, right? So again, Real News audience, shout out to you. Big big praise.
Hey, you got to give the audience praise on this. I mean, people have been like, it wasn't as much like us talking about it, but us bringing it to you and you sharing it with people and getting that out there. I mean, just letting people know there's opposition before they let the ideas out, before they even announce anything. That's humongous. That's some of that Sun Tzu stuff. That's winning the battle before you go out on the battlefield. That's humongous. And thank goodness for the great people of East Tennessee watching government, paying attention, and making sure they don't overcharge us just for living. You know what I mean?
Making a hard transition here, Sean. The big story of the day. Look, normally in this program, buddy, I think we start local, and we did a little bit of local news right there as well. Big thanks again to the Real News audience for setting that up. By the way, if you still want to sign that, we're still dealing with that situation.
Yeah, Nashville isn't free yet. We got to free Nashville from the 40% tax hike tyranny, Sign that thing.
That link is in the show notes, by the way. And my suggestion would be just click the Evernote link right there, but it's like directly underneath the title to this program today. You'll see all the show notes brief there for you. Some of the links for one, thanking Governor Lee for reopening the economy in a safe way, and two, signing this property tax increase situation, just saying, hey, we probably don't need that going on at this particular moment. Let me say this, though, okay? Let's get to some national news here, buddy, because everyone over the weekend has been talking about how President Trump may be scaling down or stopping altogether his daily coronavirus press briefings. And I want to look at possibly two particular situations as to why that may be the case, okay? And I know this seems like some surface level stuff, but I think the things that are lying under on the fourth or fifth level analysis, that's where that real story is, as usually is the case, right? So one, I'm going to say, the simple thing I think people are going to say is that it could just be Trump simply getting frustrated with the media coverage, right? That he's lost his patience with what I call the consistency of the media's inconsistency, right? I think that's a phrase that fits very well because if the media at this point is consistent with anything, it's how inconsistent they are. Inconsistent in their coverage of Trump, inconsistent in their coverage of Democrats, and it doesn't matter. Frankly, I'm not picking on any one publication here because, in my personal opinion, Fox is sometimes as bad as the CNN. I know some of our viewers don't like that, but it's technically true. Bias is bias when it comes down to it, right? Or possibility number two here, Sean, could be that Trump's campaign, and again, that's like, let me preface real quick here, okay? I did a lot of research on this last night. This number two is not necessarily my opinion. It's something very interesting to focus on, though, because other publications are drawing this conclusion. It could be that Trump's campaign advisors are telling him that he is getting too close to Biden's perpetual foot and mouth syndrome. Right? Maybe that he's being told that his gaffes are these public gaffes are actually hurting the entire party's image, therefore making it slightly more difficult for Republicans to maintain control of either the House or the Senate. And in particular,
if somebody was telling me that I looked like Biden, I'd stop doing whatever I was doing and do something else that's like, hey, you kind of remind me of Joe Biden. I'd be like, man, are you serious? Is it the way I did my hair? You know, is it the way I'm standing right now? Is it the way I just smelled your hair? Is that what it is? Oh man, whatever it is, I would immediately try to. That would incentivize me to want to change my behavior. Is tell me that I remind you of Joe Biden. That would do it. That would do it for sure.
That's awesome. By the way, part of my strategy behind bringing this up here, and I don't want to bury the lead too much here. There's much more on this to follow, but just to tease this a little bit right now. Peter Dow is a guy who is the campaign advisor or just an immediate advisor for both Kerry and Clinton. Okay, this guy came out with a 10-part long tweet over the weekend that was saying something to the effect of, like, in order to remain ideologically consistent, we should probably kick Biden out. All right. If we want to remain consistent in the era of this whole Me Too type thing, we should probably kick Biden to the wayside. And we need to treat everybody equally here.
That's a big
Kavanaugh, Biden, all that stuff.
That's a big if. Do we want to be consistent? Because I haven't seen the Democratic Party have that as a goal. I'm not saying they have been 100% inconsistent all the time. But when the choice between being consistent and some other strategic goal, they've chosen that consistently for the past 4 years or so. Being inconsistent. Like they've chosen to be inconsistent because you can't have progressives and moderate Democrats in the same party and be consistent. That doesn't work.
Well, and think about the way that their alleged, supposed, feigned consistency right now could actually help them out. If the situation is that everyone has buyer's remorse on Joe Biden, again, we'll touch on this way more in a minute, but if everyone has buyer's remorse on Joe Biden, you need to get him out of the running, right? But you need to get him out of the running in a way that doesn't make it look like you have buyer's remorse. So what do? You use the situation of the alleged sexual assault to then campaign and propel yourself into the moral high ground. And in so doing, you get to return Joe Biden. Like, you get to take him to the store past the 30-day return period and say it's been because the whole time it's been because we're trying to remain consistent on this Me Too thing. Whether it's Kavanaugh or Weinstein or Biden, it doesn't matter. We're going to treat them all the same.
That sounds like some progressives with ties on trying to act like they're actually Democratic Party bosses. That's what that sounds like. That sounds like some progressives saying, I know how to talk to these moderates. I know how to get Bernie in here. We'll say we need to be consistent. Well, these are some Silicon Valley progressives.
Right.
That's what's going on here. Personally, I think they should go I know he's not in office yet, but the 25th Amendment route. They already tried it with Trump. They have a playbook for it. What they need to say is it's not safe for someone with his mental state to be the leader of the free world and get people around him to sign off on that. That was the plan with Trump. They almost got it. They almost had it. You know, they could just do it with Biden. He doesn't even have any power. It might not be that difficult. But that sounds easier to me than admitting that your presidential candidate, the guy that you were going to put up, is a hair sniffer. You know? He's a kid hugger. He's a hair sniffer, man. You don't want to make that the story because that aroma will last longer than Joe Biden. That stank will be on the next candidate. And you never know. He might try to smell hair, or she might try to smell hair. It could be a problem.
Sherry's saying in Facebook, I didn't know which way I wanted to take this first. Let's roll with the Biden approach first, and then we'll get back into the media's inconsistency. Sherry's saying in Facebook here that they don't care about consistency at all, which is probably true. I think that's not just probably true. I think that's prima facie true.
Only when it's convenient, for sure.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying, buddy. Only when it's convenient. Okay, but they want to appear consistent at the same time. So if we're looking at all the possible reasons as to why Trump may be scaling down or stopping altogether these coronavirus press briefings, we'll get to this Vox story in a second, obviously. One of them, it could be that Trump's campaign advisors are telling him that he's getting too close to Biden's foot and mouth syndrome, like we just said a second ago. And this Vox story that I have linked in the show notes seems to make that same claim, that some of the DNC are now using Biden's most recent sexual assault allegations as a way to remove him from the DNC nominee and insert a different candidate entirely. So think about this, okay? I'll pull up Peter Dow's tweets here in a second. Let me read through the thread here first while I pull him up though. Peter Dow, again, former Clinton and Kerry advisor, he's saying that this is a difficult thread. Quote, I'm reading this directly. This is a difficult thread. Biden should withdraw. 1, I respect the will of voters. 2, but new information has emerged supporting Tara Reade's account of being sexually assaulted by Joe Biden. 3, credible rape accusations are disqualifying, or we have no moral standards. Again, keep in the back of your mind, this is a former Clinton and Kerry advisor. Number 4, defeating Trump is not optional. Do you start to hear what I'm saying now? 5, to avoid potential catastrophe in November, Biden should withdraw. We're not even going to kick him out. Biden should withdraw voluntarily if we can create the right narrative. 6, Warren, Harris, Klobuchar, Buttigieg, Castro, etc. could replace Biden. I'm not even making it up. Now he's just throwing it out there. 7, Bernie, #Bernie, can restart his campaign. Really? There's no hiding the ball right now. 8, we can reboot the primary and give voters a choice. Oh, wow. Dude, really? Reboot the primary. 9, which he technically could do, I suppose. 9, not him, but the DNC. 9, this is the ethical and smarter strategy to beat Trump. 10, we all lose moral authority if we embrace the quote lesser of 2 accused rapists.
Is the 11, revolution on this list? Is I mean, this is a list right here. I mean, is this a list of all the ways they could get rid of Joe Biden, or a list of all the reasons why they'll lose? I mean, what is this list? Why would anyone with a strategy mind publish this for people to read? I mean, this should be an inter-office memo at the DNC or the DCC. This should not be a published article. Who did Vox write this?
I'm saying, dude, this is Peter Dowd. I hope I'm pronouncing
Peter Dowd. Oh, Peter Dowd. Oh,
yeah,
Dowd. Yeah. Oh, what an interesting. Okay, cool. But either way, this is crazy.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
man,
if you're a Democrat right now, surely you're crying yourself to sleep every night. I mean, this is. Not because of anything else, but like the people, the elites that are messaging for you, they're not the best. I mean, seriously. Me and Grant begged. We said we'd work for the DNC to help them with their messaging like 3 years ago. Not because we believe them, but we just felt sorry for them. Their messaging is so terrible. And this list is just one of the saddest things I've ever heard. I can't even make fun of it anymore. I just want to give him a hug. I feel bad for the guy.
But think about the strategy behind what he's trying to set up. And this guy is smart enough to understand that the way you create a sellable narrative, one that sort of organically takes off, one that has a brush fire mentality where you can't even find its way back to the original match, right? You can't find the original match that struck that fire. You just know that everything is set ablaze right now. That's what he's doing. He's creating this idea that, like, yeah, we do need to get Biden out. And he does need to step down voluntarily. What do we do then? Well, what you do then is you put in a better candidate. I mean, check the stories that we're talking about in Fox here again today, but some of the DNC, like Dow, they're attempting to say, follow me on this here, trying to remain consistent about the believe all women narrative. And the play follows as follows, as we just laid it out. 1, claim that the party needs to remain ideologically consistent. 2, consistency would mean holding everyone accountable to the exact same standard, whether it be Kavanaugh, Weinstein, or Biden. 3, in so doing, the party gets to maintain the moral high ground, which is a major win. A major win. Sean, I'm going to get you to give your opinion on this in just a second. They get to maintain the moral high ground going into the election. And 4, the party gets what it really wants. It can replace Biden with a dynamic, more electable candidate. It's the best win-win possibility as far as I see. Get rid of Biden while reclaiming the narrative of compassion. Shine, going into the show this morning, said, and you get to claim that Trump does it worse, right?
Yeah,
it's not just
no. What they're basically saying is we can say our candidate is as bad as we want to, as bad as anyone's ever said any candidate in the history of American politics is, because we have the luxury of turning right around and saying, but Donald Trump's worse. So let's just dig in on it. That's what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're saying. And I keep going back to, this is the Silicon Valley progressives in their ties. This is not the revolution, the Viva la Resistance type Democrats. This is the Silicon Valley progressives trying to come up with an adult narrative that gets rid of Joe Biden. That's what this is. That's exactly what this is. And once again, I feel bad. I feel bad because in a normal election year, this article would not have happened. This would have been an article about why Bernie should be the nominee.
Right. Right.
So I do feel bad for people that are dealing with very unusual circumstances because, I've been for political candidates that had a long shot. I've been worked on campaigns that were dark horse campaigns. And it's not fun in a regular election cycle. So I feel bad for people that have maybe put a lot of emotional stuff into Bernie and, over the past 4 years, and then they get coronavirus, and then they're looking at Joe Biden like, how did this happen? because they have every reason to believe that their candidate's better. They have every reason to. And instead of doing actual kind of campaign work, television work, you see articles like this that are just long lists of why Joe Biden should not be the nominee. That are good things. These are good reasons why Joe Biden shouldn't be the nominee. Great reasons. That I'll stop there. That's enough, I guess. And I feel bad for him. I don't know what else to feel but bad for him.
Well, look, man, I think, again, this is my analysis from day one. I think everyone just missed the cue on this one, okay? The original play, I'm pretty sure, prior to coronavirus and everything else, and prior to some of these candidates going rogue, the original play was supposed to be that Joe Biden was the martyr. He was supposed to take one for the team. He was McCain for Democrats, okay? It was an all but a shoo-in that Trump was going to get re-election, all right? I mean, again, this is prior to the economic downfall and coronavirus and all this stuff. So someone had to go out there and take one for the team. But Joe Biden, you get a book deal out of it, buddy. You can ride off into the sunset if you want to, make a career out of it, okay? That's fine. Cheer yourself up, share your legacy up, as everyone knows. And then, in so doing, we can also propel all these other people to a VP candidacy or possibly a run for presidency after the 2024 is done, okay? We're talking Buttigieg possibly. We're talking Harris. We're talking some of the other high runners. So obviously, maybe Elizabeth Warren. Maybe her time's a little bit done. We don't know. But that was the play. Biden was supposed to take one while raising everyone else's profile. And then during the coronavirus situation, right prior to even, all the other candidates started going rogue, primarily because Joe Biden started getting that perpetual foot and mouth syndrome. They didn't know how to handle it. So it was a thing of like, it was just supposed to be Joe Biden losing. He wasn't supposed to decimate the party image. He wasn't supposed to completely destroy everything that they had built up prior to that, along with all these other party candidates not playing ball. So Elizabeth Warren wasn't playing ball. Bernie Sanders never has played ball. Buttigieg was the only one that was trying to get along to go along type thing. And you had this weird fracturing of social Democrats with old school Democrats with, West Wing Democrats. And you couldn't figure out what the party was. So nobody knew what Biden even stood for. So no one even knew what Biden was a martyr to or toward. You know what I'm saying? So then it didn't even make any sense to sacrifice the guy for what? For what cause? Because it's not furthering the party agenda in any particular way. And now you have something like this come out where it's like, I don't know, maybe they're just trying to replace them all around. By the way, some comments here. Eric said on Facebook, the Biden Me Too allegations prove inconsistency. Sherry said, remember the whole Roy Moore thing happened and they wanted to lynch everyone whoever looked after a woman. Then Al Franken had a picture with him actually assaulting a woman while she slept. They made every excuse for him. Judy saying, who is waiting in the wings? That's a great question right there. Who's waiting in the wings? You've heard Cuomo throwing out. You've heard some of the other candidates throwing out. There's a couple names.
There's a lot of people that are 3 feet tall that are jumping up and down saying me, 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 me.
Right.
And that's been the problem for the Democratic Party the whole time is no real leadership. Nobody that rose up above the crowd. You have a bunch of people that are unimpressive with lame resumes and even lamer talking points. Stuff that doesn't resonate with the American people. But that in itself has created the situation where, I mean, you saw this in December, January, and really November through February. Everybody who wasn't super conservative thought they could win the Democratic nomination.
Right.
I mean, you even had people who were kind of moderate Republicans thinking about running for the Democratic nomination. And that's an indicative of the weakness of the field. And it's not getting any better. It's not like there's some awesome all-star waiting in the wings. There's not.
By the way, Teresa said in Facebook a second ago, too, one of the best compliments I think I've ever heard, either about the show or us personally. I just love it, man. She said, y'all are the only, quote, American news I listen to. I usually go to BBC or Al Jazeera. I appreciate us being the only American source we listen to. Speaking of American sources, here's the second part that I wanted to give some analysis to. Ren, keep in mind that the whole reason why I brought up this Biden angle is because we've heard that Trump is now no longer doing the daily coronavirus updates. Okay, and we saw that as of Saturday. Friday he didn't even take questions.
That makes me so sad, Grant. I've liked them. I've enjoyed them. We broadcasted a bunch of them. I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed them. Yes. I'm sad they're going to be gone.
I hear you. I mean, look, it was a lot of information for people to take in. It was at least something for people to talk about every single day. And frankly, I think part of what's going on is the second part of this whole puzzle piece, if you will, is part of what's frustrating Trump, I believe, is the inconsistency, or rather the consistency of the media's inconsistency. All right, let me start with this Vox headline here saying Trump dismisses his daily coronavirus press briefings as, quote, not worth the time. And President Trump has expressed growing frustration with his daily coronavirus-related press conferences, calling them, quote, not worth his time and effort on Saturday. The sentiment coming days after, quote, and I'm reading from Vox here, y'all. Stick with me. Let me make this appeal real quick here. Shine to the rest of the audience. Stick with me for at least the next 7 to 10 minutes. And there's something that Shine and I really want to play out here as far as it pertains to this statement I'm about to read, the whole UV light testing and all this stuff that's just like the controversy that's been surrounding some of this stuff. I got a little bit of piece to speak on this. Anyways, continuing with the Vox article, saying the sentiment coming days after an erratic briefing at which Trump incorrectly suggested that injecting cleaning products could help kill off coronavirus that causes COVID-19 has been echoed by some Republican allies who reportedly worry that the conference has hurt the party as a whole. That's what I mentioned a while ago, right? That now it may not seem like you're actually running against Biden, President Trump. It may not seem that your the person that's running on the other side of the party is actually Joe Biden. You may have to shift strategies. Possibly, what I'm saying here this morning is possibly part of the reason why Trump is stopping the daily coronavirus press briefings is because it's a campaign strategy. I don't know if people like that or not. I just think it's the accurate answer. It's a campaign strategy, not necessarily having much to do with the coronavirus briefings. We are now on the back end, the tail end of the sort of squashing the curve, if you will, of flattening the curve, if you will. Okay, so that ability or that appeal to sort of play the heroic figure is not there as much as it was previously. And now during this period, it's looked like he's become his I don't know, opponent has become much more like an Andrew Cuomo than it ever has been a Joe Biden. Joe Biden, aside from his gaffes, I haven't heard much about him at all. And the Republican Party, I think, is starting to recognize that shift as well, saying like, look, man, you're playing this off as if you're going against Biden. Now it's just becoming a you thing because they don't know who their candidate is actually going to be. The narrative is out there that it's certainly not going to be Biden. So you're doing yourself a disservice. Right? There's an old political strategy that if you can't gain political points, you're usually just going to be able to lose them. So why would I show up to a debate where that's the only possibility that could happen? I'll put it this way, Sean, okay? If I'm running for a political office and it's virtually certain that I'm going to win, and somebody invites me to some, I don't know, voluntary debate or something like that, the old school political strategy used to be, and this might still be the case, don't show up if you can only lose points. If you've already got the thing won, how's that going to help? If people know your opinion already, it's not necessarily going to do anything good for you. So why show up? Why continue to do that? Why continue to put out some potential sense of liability? Let your experts do that, buddy. Let your experts go out there. That's the reason why they're quote unquote qualified experts. Let your experts go out there and run it. You don't have to be out there every single day, especially if we're not even sure who you're running against right now. And this is my opinion. I don't know. The Vox article goes on to say that the Republicans were worried about the exact same thing. Now, Trump later said that he was speaking sarcastically. And let me jump to this clip real quick, Sean, because I sent this to Sean over the weekend. I think this is possibly one of the most Trump responses I've ever heard. I might want to get your response from this or the Real News audience response from when he was asked by a reporter about that very statement of the whole, disinfectant and UV light, and the UV light in particular is what we need to pay attention to today because I have a follow-up story on that. This was Trump's response, though. Tell me what y'all think.
Clarify your comments about injections of disinfectant.
No, I was asking a question sarcastically to reporters like you just to see what would happen. Now, disinfectant for doing this, maybe on the hands, would work. And I was asking the question of the gentleman who was there yesterday, Bill, because when they say that something will last 3 or 4 hours or 6 hours, but if the sun is out or if they use disinfectant, it goes away in less than a minute. Did you hear about this yesterday? But I was asking a sarcastic and a very sarcastic.
All right, so right there, I'll stop a little bit of that clip early, right? But that's what one of my favorite Trump sort of responses that I've heard in a very long time. All right, just sort of throwing it out there. Like I said something sarcastically to see how you dumb media would react. I think that puts a pin in what I'm talking about here. Is that part of his dealing might be because it's just a shifting campaign strategy. Part of it, buddy, might just be as simple as like he's probably just getting frustrated with the media. Like he's probably just done with how the media is covering some of this stuff. All right, and I say that in particular because remember, Shine, on Friday's program, I actually mentioned this idea that Remember back a year or two back when he said that they say windmills are giving people cancer. Okay. I don't know. This is at some correspondence dinner. I don't remember. It doesn't necessarily matter. You can look it up for reference if you want to. At some point, Trump said they say windmills are giving people cancer. So maybe we should look into that or something. Well, at the time, I thought that was an absurd statement on its face. And out of context, even within the context, because he didn't give any context or what he was referencing back at that particular time when he said that, it was absurd on its face. When you say they say windmills are giving people cancer, what does that mean? Until you research a little bit more and understand that it was an Australian government, the Australian government that actually conducted research along with several other NGOs, devoted tens of millions of dollars to this study that was trying to figure out people's living proximity to certain cancer clusters that had popped up around the area. So when Trump is referencing, he may not be the most eloquent orator alive. That's fine. I'll grant you that for sure. But when he was referencing, they say windmills give people cancer, it wasn't entirely absurd either. It sounds like an absurd statement, but then you have to go back to, well, then why did Australia devote tens of millions of dollars to it? Similarly, what we have in this situation right now, and I think part of what is frustrating Trump is he references these things that are possibly based on reality, references these things that are actually going on, but doesn't sometimes lend much credence to what he is referencing. Point in case here is this Washington Times article that I have linked in the show notes. Firm tests UV light treatment that Trump was mocked for mentioning. And this is a lot of what people are referencing back to now, saying like, my personal assessment on this, all right, this is Grant's personal assessment. Trump is by no means a medical expert, nor should he ever be taken as one. But that doesn't mean that what he was referencing was pure nonsense either. Both these things can be true at the same time. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but stick with me for a second here. Admittedly, he probably should have just kept quiet in this one. Even within the proper context, it sounds ridiculous. That's just my opinion. But at least understand that what he was referencing was out there somewhere. The Washington Times article says, okay, President Trump, he's been mocked relentlessly for suggesting that ultraviolet light could be brought inside the body to kill coronavirus. But apparently there's actually ongoing research to do just that. Doesn't make it legitimate. Doesn't mean that it's sound scientific evidence. It just means that when Trump was referencing something, he wasn't just making it up off the top of his head. Again, I realize like I'm sounding like a Trump shill here, dude. I get that. I totally understand that.
Hey, Grant, have you ever had like an MRI or a brain scan, or even just gotten a what do you call it? Where they take pictures of your bones, an X-ray,
like CT or X-ray. Yeah.
Yeah. What is X-ray?
Well,
isn't that in the light spectrum?
I think so, man. I have no idea.
It's light. I'll just let you know. It's light. It's in the light spectrum, just like gamma and X and all the other things that are not in visual light, but there's also visual light. The way they get pictures of your bones is something from the light spectrum penetrates your skin and takes a picture of your bones. So is this 100-year-old technology we're talking about? Or 60-year-old technology? Light penetrating the skin and going into the body? It's pretty old. It's as old as radio waves. And us figuring out how to harness those. That's in the sound spectrum. But I'm just throwing that out there, that the idea that light can penetrate skin is kind of standard in our culture. And we do it in a number of different ways in the medical field. So that's just, I'm just a layperson, but X-ray is light and it penetrates the skin. Or what about the things we go through when we're at the airport that penetrate the skin to see if we have guns or knives or a little bag of liquid on us? Those things penetrate the skin. So just throwing that out there, that it's not crazy that light can penetrate the skin.
Well, think about this pharmaceutical firm is called A2 Bioscience, okay? A2 Bioscience. They announced on April 20th. This is in this Washington Times article. They announced on April 20th that this is 4 days before Trump was actually even referencing these remarks about the whole UV light type thing. This firm had signed an exclusive licensing deal with Cedar-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. So they'd signed an exclusive deal with one of the more high-profile medical centers in Los Angeles. The center has developed and is testing, quote, a UVA heat or heel light, they call it, a UVA heel light designed to be inserted via catheter inside the trachea to kill pathogens, including the coronavirus. All right. Now, the person that's leading up this bioscience technique said, quote, the Heolite technology employs proprietary methods of administering intermittent ultraviolet A light via a novel, I can't even pronounce some of this stuff, via a novel medical device. Preclinical findings indicate that the technology's significant impact on eradicating a wide range of viruses and bacteria, including and inclusive of coronavirus. The data has been the basis of discussions with the FDA for a new term path to enable human use for potential treatment of coronavirus in intubated patients in the intensive care units. So again, I go back to this idea that, look, don't put much stock, I suppose, in Trump being a medical expert. He is not a medical expert. What the guy does is he pitches stuff out there as a salesman. All right. So when he's going to and he's asking questions about something that he was following up by one of his experts that had just presented this stuff, he may have done a terrible job presenting what he was referencing. But again, the only appeal I'm making today, Sean, is that he was referencing something that is happening. I think that's slightly part of what is frustrating Republicans right now, what's frustrating President Trump. And to be frank, again, I still reft on the side of, like, in just that quote itself, it sounds outrageous, buddy. By itself, the president saying that, like, you can go inside the body with light or you can go inside the body with disinfectant. To a lot of people, that sounds outrageous. If, however, you go and say, like, oh, dude, hold on, you're saying that in Cedars-Sinai, there's a medical center in Los Angeles that's already signed an exclusive contract to basically do just that, to do some type of use. So, all right, it doesn't mean it's legitimate. Doesn't mean it's going anywhere, but it does mean, just like the situation that was going on with the cancer clusters, that he was referencing something. And hey, I know.
Mr. Henry, I apologize that you can't see the video and that this video is covering up my face right now, but I'm showing a video of Chinese officials with no audio, and you can find it yourself, of Chinese officials using UV light to clean their buses at night. And you can find this yourself. It's Shanghai introduces ultraviolet light to disinfect public buses. And it's them putting UV lights inside buses, then putting them in these giant light tunnels where light hits the buses. Just throwing that out there. Like, there is so much anecdotal, and I would even say official evidence that people are using UV light to clean things. It's almost patronizing for us to sit here and act like it's not part of normal. I don't know, that it's not normal for people to talk about this. I mean, this video was from March 13th, so over a month and a half ago. This has been out it's very disingenuous for news people to be making fun of the ultraviolet light thing. I mean, the disinfectant comment, yeah. I mean, and he can claim he meant this or meant that, whatever. Especially if you don't like him, you can take him to task on that if you want to. But the ultraviolet light, which when we talked about it on the show, I said the big story is that there is non-anecdotal proof being brought to us by a lab from the CDC or wherever it was, a United States lab, that ultraviolet light is killing this thing very quickly. And that's great news. It's great news. And that it's not anecdotal evidence. This was a scientific study. So let's use ultraviolet light. I have ultraviolet light all over my house. I'm trying ultraviolet light wash on my hands because I grow plants, or my fiance grows plants all over the house. But I'm just playing around. But like, these are all really cool things that are less expensive than gallons and gallons of disinfectant, right? Less expensive than blasting cities with that. You've seen France and China spraying, and South Korea spraying these sprays all over the city. Wouldn't it be better if you just had these ultraviolet light things? It sounds a little healthier, cleaner, cheaper. But that's what I got from the press conference, and everybody else got, what an idiot, light can kill germs. That's so weird, bro. That's weird. To me, the reaction was weird. It should have been a celebration. We have a weapon that can kill this thing. Isn't that great? But anyway.
Norm said in Facebook, by the way, soundbite culture will be the death of freedom. Goodness, yeah. TikTok has all the youngsters captured and distracted. Attention spans and laziness will elect the next dim. TikTok is like the new age Vine. TikTok and Vine are both these platforms.
It's as good of a product as Vine, though. Like, it's a pretty good product. It's just there's a bunch of dumb kids using it. It was pretty cool like a year and a half ago, like when it was brand new. And I was, PewDiePie used to do TikTok reviews all the time, and they were hilarious. The kids were actually good at memeing. The problem is you get a bunch of normies on any platform, and the content gets bad. And I hate sounding like a internet elitist, But all platforms are better when they're new, and TikTok is no longer new. And it's it's stupid now. It was cool at one point, though. It was cool.
What Norm is meaning about TikTok, I think, is the platform that they stream on. The platform meaning like the situation of you can only have 30 or 60-second videos. There's a time lock on how long these things could be, so people have to cram in the information. Like Vine used to be, I think 6 or 10-second videos was the longest, so you had to cram in as much as you possibly can. And Norm's obviously referencing the attention span of people's ability or inability, I suppose, to pay attention to anything longer than just a minute long. Right? Eric's saying that is it a surprise to anyone that Trump's words were twisted, lies were told, false accusations were thrown? Just another Tuesday in the orange man is bad world. He goes on to say, Eric, that is, goes on to say that Terrence McKenna said back in the early 90s, even maybe late 80s, that our culture was evolving into a society who will use memes to push forth the most sophisticated ideas, and it will diminish the ability to use logic and reasoning. Even before the internet memes were born, he was predicting memes would be used in the exchange of books and whatnot. Very interesting there, man. Very interesting. And again, what I'm saying about this is, and I don't know if I'm correct, this is just the way the Grant feels. This is not even a Mr. Henry thing, not a character. This is the way I personally feel about the situation. I don't think it's necessarily bad to say that Trump might have been off base. Okay, I don't think it's bad. You can go to your Democrat buddies and laugh and chuckle with them. It's like, yeah, dude, that was probably a ridiculous thing. That was a bit of a ridiculous thing that Trump said. I'll give you that. Granted, Obama had his gas back in the day. We all remember that apparently there's 57 states in the nation. Okay, there's no, I get it. Yes,
you like your doctor, you can keep it.
I
mean,
keep it, right?
Yeah,
I get it.
It's not gonna. The cost isn't gonna change at all. It's actually gonna be cheaper.
And this is what I'm saying is I don't think there's any problem admitting that Trump had a gaffe moment that is a moment that he probably shouldn't repeat it, and that Trump is not an elected official to be a medical expert. Okay, that's why he has medical experts. At the same time, however, you can also say, by the way, what he was referencing was not outrageous. It was not absurd on its face. Just like when he said windmills can cause cancer, Australia studied that to the tune of $20 or $30 million. Just like when he's saying now that you can use UV light in the body, it sounds outrageous. I still think it might be outrageous, but apparently there's a firm in LA that's studying it right now that has exclusive contracts to do just that. I'm talking about intubation literally in the body using UV rays. I don't know.
And if it wasn't possible, they wouldn't be spending the money. Like it at least needs to be theoretically possible for someone to spend the money to study something, right?
Exactly.
It at least needs, like, scientists wouldn't even spend the money if it wasn't even theoretically possible. But this isn't even about, to me, Mr. Henry, because I don't want anyone to think that, like, we're down for cult of personality. This isn't about proving Trump right. For me, it's about saying there was some good news last week, and it was covered up by stupid drama that has no implications on anything important. Like whether or not Trump was talking about disinfectant or not. Believe me, if there were mass amounts of people who took a bunch of bleach or Lysol to the dome, took shots, and died, we would have heard about it. So it didn't affect anything. It affected nothing. But this UV light thing, I mean, even just using it to clean surfaces, to clean buses, to whatever, that study, that work, not even talking about penetrating the body, just using it to clean surfaces, because it supposedly lasts less than a minute with concentrated UV light. That will have long-lasting implications. That matters. That's real. The real news from last week is U.S. confirms we have a weapon to fight COVID-19, and it's ultraviolet light. There was much rejoicing. Ticker tape parade. Thank goodness for scientists. You know, blessings on America. You know, that's the real news. You know, the fake news was there's a drama story. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, Trump shouldn't have joked around. He doesn't have the luxury of joking around. He doesn't have the luxury of being able to mess with reporters. He should be more serious. That's a real critique, and he should be more serious. And he's probably lost an opportunity to talk to the American people on a daily basis because he was not being serious, or because something got underneath his skin, and I will hold him accountable for that. He should not have done that.
And exactly, man. And that's what I'm saying. From day one, I think it's been fair to say that real news is always called balls and strikes when it comes to Trump or anybody else, but especially when it comes to Trump. And then I think that's all we're trying to do one more time is just call balls and strikes. You can be critical, nor most importantly, I think you should be critical of all your elected officials, Trump or otherwise, right? You should absolutely be critical of when he gets things wrong, calling them wrong, to not just hold him accountable, but hold yourself accountable to what you want your worldview to be and look like, and what you want to be able to accept and not accept. And Eric said in Facebook just a second ago, it really doesn't matter. Here we go. It really doesn't matter what he says. The left will use anything they can to attack him. If he never spoke again, there would be a war on silence. And a little bit of that to round out this whole theme that we've been on today. Again, just to recap where we're at, the idea being that Trump is no longer having these coronavirus updates on a daily basis, or at least he won't be there for him, is what it looks like. He wasn't there for the Saturday one. He cut the Friday one short. The idea was, the first thing strain we went on is like, I don't know, man, maybe there's a play right now too, so that Joe Biden is not the candidate. Maybe this is a campaign strategy, okay? Maybe the Republican people that are running his campaign, or Republicans in general, are starting to recognize that you're not running against Biden anymore, buddy. Look at the narrative that they're creating out there. All right. So you may be shooting yourself in the foot here a little bit, because you've been strategizing as if it is a Biden run. It may not be a Biden run. So we need to reassess. We need to pull back and reassess.
I never did get to comment on that analysis, Grant. If you'll give me just 60 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
And this is going to sound Inception, Matrix style, whatever. So try to follow me here. I think no matter what, Biden's going to be the candidate. But I think the Democratic strategy right now is kind of threatening Trump with the idea that there might be another candidate in order to change his behavior, to keep him off his steps. Because Trump went up 6 points when he started doing those briefings. He had when he peaked out. Now he has gone down a little bit since the peak of a month ago or so. But for a time, these briefings were gold for him. They were absolute gold, and you saw it's come in phases. Like first, major news carriers quit carrying it because they were carrying it. When they realized that it was pushing his numbers up, they stopped carrying it. Then they started calling for them to not be carried. Then they started picking up on things, then saying that what he was saying was dangerous. So this has been a phase-by-phase attack to get his stuff off the air, to get his coronavirus briefings off the air. And I believe even the strategy of saying it could have been Andrew Cuomo, or it could be someone else besides Biden, was an effort to get him off television. And I don't think that the Democrats actually have the chutzpah or the talent to get rid of Biden and put someone in there and not completely lose the Democratic Party in the process. I don't think they have the talent, to be perfectly honest. But they can play like they're going to. They can pretend, because they're better at pretending and lying and being dishonest than anybody, than any political party on the planet. They're really good at it, at throwing out fake things and then not apologizing for them later and pretending like they didn't happen. They're super good. The Democratic Party, super good at that. So I think a lot of this may be kind of a juke move to keep Trump off of his game. And essentially it worked. I mean, it took away something that was really driving numbers for him. And I don't know. That's kind of my opinion. I don't think they can take Biden out of it. But they can definitely pretend for as long as they want to. I mean, as long as it's not profitable for people to view Biden as the candidate, they can make it so Biden is not. And then bring him back in the national space as the candidate just later, when he seems less tired, I guess. But anyway, that's my take on this whole deal. Is this didn't just happen in one day. This has been happening. Trump getting rid of these press conferences has been happening over the past month, since he peaked out at his best numbers he's ever had, ever.
And as this conversation has been going on, again, keeping in the vein of medical culture, medical conversations, medical advice, medical experts, whatever, we have another guy that's not exactly a qualified medical expert in Bill Gates that is now making medical calls for apparently all 7 billion of us. Okay, this is the story I want to end on today, and two different stories here. You'll see linked in the show notes, coming from Yahoo News. Gates Foundation calls for global cooperation on vaccine for 7 billion people. So look, we're living in a day and age now where people that are not qualified experts in something are basically leading movements, okay? And this is, again, it's not to reference Trump necessarily in this particular situation, but we have Bill Nye, the science guy, that apparently is the climate change expert for everybody. I get it. Okay, he's more of a media personality than anything else. He's just drawing attention to something. But the guy expresses like he knows the full-on scientific expert, like he's qualified expert on this subject. And maybe he is a qualified expert, but his credentials certainly don't speak to that. He's Bill Nye, the science guy. I'm pretty sure he has a mechanical engineering degree. Great, that's cool. It's fantastic, but how many decades worth of research? Has he devoted the last 2 or 3 decades specifically to climate change? Possibly. He's spoken to all the experts. I don't know. What about Bill Gates, man? Is Bill Gates a vaccine expert? I mean, I don't know. I know he's funding $150 billion for all this stuff. Here's the headline right now. Again, keep in mind, while all this other conversation is going on, there's some major world players that are getting ready for what I think is going to be one of the larger fights going forward in the future. I'm not using this time period right now. Sean and I have to get off a little bit early this morning so we can make a phone call here in just a minute. So I'm not using the next 8 minutes here of the show to make any point on vaccines or otherwise. All I'm saying is I'm pretty sure this is the next fight we have coming. All right. The wealthy Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation said Wednesday they need global cooperation to ready for the COVID-19 vaccines for 7 billion people. They're offering an additional 150 million towards developing these treatments for viruses. Now, they say it's likely to take as many as 18 months, but let me give you some of the quotes that the foundation's chief executive, Mark Sussman, said. He said, quote, "It's normal to have at maximum hundreds of millions of doses manufactured." He goes on to say, quote, when you're dealing with a novel pathogen like COVID-19 and as when we get to identifying a successful vaccine, we're going to need billions of doses. There are 7 billion people on the planet. We're going to need a vaccine. We're going to need to vaccinate every single one of them. There is no manufacturing capacity to do that. He continues by saying a successful vaccine has to be available for 7 billion people. You need to test if there are unexpected side effects or if side effects within cohorts or groups, whether it's with pregnant women or elderly or the very young. The vast majority of vaccine candidates fail in these larger trials. So the so-called phase 3 trials, he's saying. Clearly, he goes on to say, and this is the most problematic portion of all of this for me, of what I'm saying is, while we're all focusing on Trump's gaffes, there's some major conversations going on behind the scenes. The most problematic portion of this entire quote that I just read here is about to come. This one right here. Clearly for us, the World Health Organization is a very strong, reliable partner. Going on to basically make the claim that in order to get the fastest vaccine ever developed in human history, they're going to have to use the World Health Organization to be able to do that. And in reference, just to set the stage for this, so you guys know what this is not Mr. Henry taking something out of context. In reference, this headline is basically the U.S.'s response. U.S. says that it will not take part in the WHO Global Drug Vaccination Initiative launch. That's coming from Reuters, all right? So now think about it this way, buddy. You've had this set stage between the WHO and the U.S. for at least the last month or so. Now you're setting the stage for basically the largest private donor, which is, I assume, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, to the WHO. And pull it back one service level further, and now what you're really talking about is essentially some type of proxy situation going on between basically China and the U.S. That's what it really comes down to. All right. This is a major play, a major thing going on in the background. I'm not even trying to speculate about what may or may not be going on with the vaccine stuff. That's not my realm of conversation to get into. What is my realm of conversation to get into is like, Bill Gates, buddy, seriously? Like, first of all, you created Microsoft. I'm not exactly sure how you became the world leader in vaccines. Maybe there's something I'm missing. I'm willing to admit that and recant. Fine. Let's say I'm not. Let's say I am missing. Let's say I'm not missing something, and you go forward and relying upon the WHO at this particular point, Bill Gates. How? Why? Dude, that is a terrible selling point. That is an absolutely terrible, terrible selling point. Who's going to follow you on that? Absolutely nobody. This official from the U.S. said that there will be no U.S. official participation. We look forward to learning more about this initiative in support of its international cooperation to develop a vaccine for COVID-19 as soon as possible. But basically going on to say, like, dude, buddy, sorry, not sorry. And here's what I'm saying, man, is like, let's say you're a part of this real news community that believes that vaccines are helpful, that they do work, that it is good for a sense of herd immunity or I don't know, whatever. I'm not trying to make a medical claim right here. If that is the case, the WHO has completely shot itself in the foot to be able to pitch that, okay? Much like Rand Paul says, when Rand Paul got up there in a committee meeting and said, like, look, I'm a physician, speaking as Rand Paul here, said, I'm a physician. If this is a platform of persuasion, I'm going to tell you as a physician, it's probably best to vaccinate your children. It's probably best to become vaccinated. That's how you get an entire community immunized against something coming in and infecting all of us. But he goes on to say, as a politician, suggesting that the federal government or any governing body, for that matter, should force you to put something in your body. Are y'all serious right now? Rand Paul's saying, are we seriously having this conversation? As a persuasion platform, as a physician, I'm going to tell you this is probably the best thing to do. But as an elected official, if you're putting me up here on the stage to say that, yeah, you should be forced to plunge something into your body because the government told you so, what are we even talking about right now? How is that something that you all could get behind? And again, one final time, Sean, I'll give you the last word here because we got to get to this call coming up here in just a second. But one final time, even if you disagree with me, man, I get it. That is a large, massive burden to place on the medical community. It is. Because for hundreds of years, if not even longer, the general consensus in the scientific community might have been vaccines work, okay? And if that is the consensus, unfortunately, or fortunately for some, we are back to the point right now in society where the burden is back on the scientific and medical community to reconvince the populace of that very notion. And if the science is there to back it up, I'm frankly saying that it shouldn't be that objectively difficult. If you have empirical evidence to show that, convince your fellow man that it's the best thing to do. But using the strong arm of government or the WHO or Bill Gates, for that matter, to try and get people to force something into their bodies, it's just not going to work, y'all. As far as an effective strategy is concerned, it's just not going to work. If that's your end goal, Bill Gates, is to get as many people to take this vaccine as possible, doing it through the WHO is your last shot. That is your absolute last shot right now. Anyways, buddy, that's the update. The U.S. says it's not playing ball. We got to get off a minute or two early here. So I'll give you the last word and kick it over to you, Sean.
Well, Grant, I appreciate that. I think you can get a little bit of context of what's going on from the news last week that we were cutting off funding to the WHO. Mm-hmm. I think it has a lot more to do with the United States not trusting the WHO to provide them with good information or good products, considering their relationship with China and the dishonesty they showed in pinning any kind of critique on China for this virus getting as big as it did. So I think that has more to do with it in the United States than the United States government's stance on vaccines. So I'll just throw that out there. But I also want to throw out there, I was trying to get it posted before you threw it over to me. If you missed the Glenn Jacobs town hall on unlocking the economy, I was trying to get it posted on the Real News page. I have an updated HD version, all the live mistakes edited out. It should be on the Real News page any moment now. So make sure you check that out. And I really appreciate everyone who joined us and want to tell Mr. Henry he did a really great job moderating the thing. I really enjoyed it. So
thanks, buddy.
That's it for me, Mr. Henry.
Well, again, I hate to end it with as many people in the stream as we have right now. We will be back tomorrow doing it big. Tomorrow, I think David and I are probably, Shine and I are probably going to try this new thing of doing sort of a little digital hangout after the conclusion of the show. So definitely want to tune in tomorrow. If you got time in the afternoon, right after this program, tomorrow morning, we'll maybe do a little digital hangout, maybe some throughout the week. We'll solidify the date for y'all. But it's basically like, hey, come this thing what we're doing right now, this little Zoom session to see us on, come join us in the show afterwards. Continue the conversation. Let us know your opinion, almost like a call-in line to a radio show or something, if you will. But yeah, got to sign off for today. Check out those links in the description if you want more information on anything we spoke about today, or if you want to help us out with some of these initiatives, thanking Governor Lee for reopening the economy, or the property tax. That's all in the description there for you. As for today, myself, Grant Henry, David Shine Thompson, signing off. See you tomorrow. Love y'all.